Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Michelle Brown with Leading Educators with your Week 4, Day 16 Distance Learning lesson. So, for all of our videos, you can expect a few things. We're going to start with a list of the resources and materials that you need for the lesson. We'll always do a brief overview of the learning for the lesson, a quick model of some of the reading, thinking, speaking, and writing required by the lesson, and finally a preview of the learning for upcoming lessons. Yesterday, we previewed this week's article, Quality of Life Indicators, and we thought about our own quality of life. Today, you'll be completing a first read of the text. Always remember to share your learning, complete the weekly fluency activity, and do at least 20 minutes of additional reading in a text of your choice after completing the lesson activities for the day. And of course, it's time for our riddle of the day. Collect your thoughts and get ready to get your brain warmed up because it's time to get thinking. Okay. If you've got me, you want to share me. If you share me, you haven't kept me. What am I? I'll read it again. If you've got me, you want to share me. If you share me, you haven't kept me. What am I? If you need a little bit more time, go ahead and pause the video because I'm about to show you the answer. A secret. So if you were surprised by that answer, again, pause the video, take a minute and think about why that makes sense. Right? So all of us have had the experience where we've heard a secret, someone's told us a secret, or we've got our own secret, and you just want to share it, but then once you share it, it's not a secret anymore, right? You haven't kept it. So I hope this means that your brains are warm and ready for learning. The materials that you're going to need for this lesson are listed on your lesson, and they're also displayed on your screen here. You can find the lesson on page 51 in your packet. The note catchers on page 52. The text we're going to be reading is on pages 45 through 48. And of course, you'll need something to write with. To quickly refresh our memory of this week's focus, we're going to continue our study of the Quality of Life Indicators article, keeping our two guiding questions in mind. What is needed in order for each of us to have a good quality of life? And how is our life's destiny determined by the quality of our lives? Here's our learning target for today. Let's read it together. I can develop a general understanding of the text by following the first read routine of notice, annotate, connect, respond. As mentioned, you'll start by doing a first reading of the text to get the general gist. Then you'll reflect on what stood out to you after the reading. Your discussion today will focus on the meaning of the phrase quality of life, and you'll end by completing your first read graphic organizer and defining some of the vocabulary words from the text. Now that you have an idea of what to expect in our lesson today, let's get started with our first read. For this first reading, I'd like you to read the text out loud. You might want to do this by yourself or with a family member, caregiver, or friend. This is going to help you hear the flow of the phrases and sentences and help you better understand the text. Remember, the goal of our first reading is to understand the gist and central point of the text. As you read, you can take notes within the text and in the margins by underlining words, phrases, or sentences that stand out to you, drawing a box around any unfamiliar words or phrases, and writing down any reactions, opinions, or questions that you have about the text in the margins. Now I'm going to do a quick model of the first read. I'm going to start by reading the text out loud. Types of quality of life indicators. Quality of life indicators come in many different forms. National governments tend to look at economic indicators, such as employment, income, gross domestic product, GDP, and cost of living. GDP is one way to measure the wealth of a country. Local governments, on the other hand, might be more interested in the public life of residents. They might look at library books being checked out, high school graduation rates, and the percentage of citizens who volunteer regularly. Local governments might also be more interested in measuring the safety of an area, like crime levels or the number of vehicle accidents. So I know from the heading of this section that I'm going to be learning about different types of quality of life indicators. In fact, the first sentence of this first paragraph tells me that quality of life indicators come in many different forms. Then right away, the article is telling me that national governments tend to look at economic indicators, and they call out gross domestic product as one example of this. And immediately, I recognize this term from this week's vocabulary words, so I highlighted it here. The next paragraph talks about a contrast in the types of quality of life indicators. It says that local governments might be more interested in the public life of residents, and it goes on to give some examples. I highlighted those because they are so different from what's being looked at a national level. To help myself remember why I highlighted these sections, I also wrote some notes in the margins. First, it seems that government leaders value data over people's opinions, but personally, I think that both evaluations should count. Another thing I noted is that even though a country is wealthy, rich, that doesn't mean that all people are happy or have a good quality of life. Another thing that I noted when I saw this was that local governments seemed focused on people, while national governments were more focused on economics. So maybe the fact that the national government is taking care of the economic part, maybe that frees up the local level to look at more nuanced indicators in that public life sphere. After you do your first reading, you'll do a quick internal reflection on what you read and think about what stood out to you the most. Then you'll think about everything that you learned about quality of life indicators from this first read and talk to a family member, caregiver, or friend about what you believe the meaning of quality of life to be. So during these difficult times in which we live, an analysis of quality of life should really reveal all of the ways that each of us have many of our daily needs met. One thing I would suggest is that before you start your conversation, you can actually go back to the article and put a star next to all of the parts that you want to include in your conversation. After that, you'll do your daily writing. First, you'll revisit your 4 concept vocabulary words. Remember that you ranked them based on familiarity yesterday. Today's task is to select 3 of those words and use context clues from the text to define the words. Don't worry if your definitions aren't fully fleshed out, as you'll have a chance to revise these definitions later on in the week. Your final writing task will be to use the notes you made during your first read to complete the first read graphic organizer. When writing your summary in the last box, remember that a summary is a concise overview of a text. It shouldn't include your opinion or your interpretations. Save your opinions though, because later on this week, I'll be asking you to write about them. As always, if you get stuck and need some help, you can reach out directly to your English teacher via email using the formats here. In our next lesson, you'll be thinking more about your own quality of life, and we'll be revisiting key parts of the text to do a close reading. We've come to the end of another video. Until next time, always remember a few things. 1, don't forget to talk about your lesson with someone. You'll also want to read for 20 minutes and complete a reading log entry. The reading log is at the front of your packet. And finally, practice your reading fluency using the first or second page of your weekly reading. Enjoy your learning, and I'll see you soon.